Welcome back to my water flood damaged M135i X-Drive project, which has a seized engine that I'm trying to fix. In the last video I removed the underbody braces, the entire exhaust system, I cut my nose with the heat shield, and I lost the fight with the prop shaft. Coming up, round 2, I win the fight with the prop shaft. And finally we get the engine out. But first there's a load of work to do, so let's get to it.
So a welcome change of pace from all the heavy work underneath the car. Now we're going to start dealing with some of these coolant pipes. So this here is the cap for the coolant. So I just need to loosen that off. Oop. And I thought some more coolant might come out. So I've got the bucket handy. Now we just have a couple of coolant pipes to get off. So there's this one, and it's our friends, the little metal clips again. Let's see if they behave themselves. The idea is nice, isn't it? You just move it into that down position and then you should be able to just kind of push it in and grab it out. Oh yeah, yeah, it worked. Don't know why it didn't work on the turbo hose. And this hose was actually attached to the radiator pack before. It can just come out now and go in my parts box. And now we just have this smaller hose. It actually goes all the way back to that expansion tank. There's a little clip for it here, so I'm just going to pop it out of there. And then very similar hose clamp as before, except a much smaller version. There we go, so that's one more off. And I'm just going to pop it off at the expansion tank end as well. Yeah, and then above the other one we removed, there's just another coolant pipe here. So I think I'll get this battery tray out because I just think it'll give better access for seeing underneath. There's probably some hoses I need to get to there. So I'm just going to pop this electrical connector off, and that will enable me to move this out of the way and just see what else I can get out of the way too. I'll tuck that one behind there. Okay, so at the back here, oh that pulls out of the way, so that's good. So at the back here there's just a couple of cable clips, so I'll just get under that edge of the clip. There we go, quite strong, aren't they? Okay, that's good, so that can go out of the way. Just a series of 13mm bolts. And you can just see the edge of this spanner here, which is holding the transmission in neutral. Just going to clip that for now. I think the transmission actually stays in neutral once you've got it in that position, so maybe I didn't need that to be tie wrapped. Let's do a test wiggle. Yeah, I think what you're going to find is there's all sorts of hoses and things fastened to this battery tray. So there's one there, so I might as well pop that out. A battery tray is not just a battery tray these days, it's a hanger for all sorts of wires and hoses. Or maybe that'll come out as I lift, because it seems pretty tight right now. Must say the battery tray is not feeling any looser just yet. But hopefully once these two are out, huh? Okay, that's good. And then obviously this here is proving to be quite a problem actually. Oh, there we go, yeah, we've got it. Yeah, so this cable that's running across the engine bay here, it fastens on in there somewhere. I think it's like a transmission earthing cable, runs all the way through here around the front and just anchors in underneath the coolant bottle here. I think that these can stay, so don't worry about those too much. I'm just going to pop that one out. Put that nut back on there for safekeeping. And this little fastener here holds it tidy, but there's also a hose on the back edge that it holds. Poor little action camera, getting some abuse today. Oh, there's a whole bunch of wires that all feed in here that I hadn't noticed. The problem is this isn't really designed to be open again, but all of these other cables that run through that are all wrapped up, they need to stay here because they don't run across the engine bay. But this brown one definitely needs to come out because it's going to come out with the transmission. This type of clip, it looks like it's just designed to snap closed once, but I'll tape it closed if it comes to it later. This is the unglamorous part of car work. There we go, got it. Unfortunately there's two of those clips. Yes, got it. Oh man, not having a lot of luck with this. So what I decided to do is disconnect it at this side and pull it back, which means I'll have to reconnect this clip and the earth again. But it's a tidier solution. 2 steps forward and 1 step back. Just going to put a little bit of silicone grease on that, because I never like earth points that don't have at least something on them to stop the weather getting to them, because that'll corrode eventually. And then some future owner in 15 years time will be searching for earth faults. But not that one. So I'm just going to feed this through here. Okay, I think that'll do for now. So next up, I'm just going to disconnect this bottom hose from the coolant expansion tank, because it runs across this area and I want good access to these engine mount bolts later. So let's see if we can get that loose. And you can see there's a hose clamp for it there, so I'm going to pop it out of that. And then there's this different type of hose clip back here, which I'm just going to pop up. This is a nice little touch, isn't it? Some of the BMW hoses, they have a little marking on, tells you where it goes into the clips and things. So there's one there and then up there. It also means when you're refitting these, if you see these along the hose, then you know it needs to be clipped in somewhere. So the expansion tank hose goes back here into this, which I think is a little diverter of some kind. And then this other hose here, that one's going to fly off, which they do from time to time. Rescued it. Ah, there we go. Oh, some more water. You have to keep moving the bucket around. I'll have some mopping up to do later. Okay, let's get this one out as well. So I'll just disconnect that. It's already off at the expansion tank side, remember. I'll just feed it up there. Then of course there's still this one. But it's time for some lunch, and I'll come back to that. It might seem like I'm jumping around like a jack-in-the-box here, there and everywhere, and it's kinda because I am. So I'm following a technical manual, but it's for a very different type of removal of the engine than what I can manage with the equipment I've got. So as a result, it means I'm having to kind of pick things out, and it's useful info, but I'm also having to wing it, and I like a bit of winging it. It was getting a bit rigid and I was focused in one area for too long, so you know, a bit more of a scattergun approach. I'll enjoy the work more and we'll still get there. You can see it's looking a lot clearer in here now, and I'm just visualizing the engine either dropping a little bit and then coming forward, or maybe being raised a little bit. So anything that's going to prevent that from happening, then I'm removing. I'm going to finish this apple. I like to finish off my lunch with an apple. Gives me a bit of energy ready for the afternoon. Okay, and what the technical manual says to do next is to disconnect the steering rack. And I might have been lucky before, because when I've worked on other cars, the steering rack's been at the front of the subframe, and so you've been able to get to it. But this one's round the back.
And you guessed it, the access is really poor, but I discovered that you can access the steering knuckle from inside the car in the driver's side footwell.
I honestly don't know if that technical manual's helping or hindering me, but I found some alternative instructions for loosening off the steering column, and it's just, as you can expect, underneath the driver's steering wheel. So theoretically I undo it there, and then the steering rack can drop down. So just to give myself better access to that bolt, I'm going to see if I can take this trim out and then this foot pad. Okay. Not 100% sure, but I think that this metal comes out. It does. So it seems that there's a series of 10mm nuts down in there. Yeah, they're tight, aren't they? It's only holding a flipping footrest in. Incredibly tight. It's like they've got Loctite on, but they don't. Will that trim come out? Who knows? Oh, it looks like it might do. Come on. Solid bloody footrest. And now we can see that a bit better. But look at all the Loctite on that bolt. So that's going to be fun in games as well, isn't it? I think I should point out at this point that this steering wheel I've made is absolutely straight. Doesn't look it from this angle, but believe me, if you were sat in the driver's seat, it'd be straight. And then down here, you know, it's important that we don't lose any of that position. What I'll do is I'll take photos of this as it is, and then we'll try not to let that shaft turn. But what I'll do, I think, is I'll just clean that shaft with some brake cleaner, and I'll put a mark going through. Might be a good idea. Okay, it's not precision engineering. Well, that's the best I can do. Reaching in there is really awkward. Okay,
So as you can see, that's off. Also, as you can probably see, it's a hex. So that mark that I've done, even though it didn't look super accurate, because it's only got 4 sides, it should be good. Unless this somehow does a full rotation. But the important thing is this doesn't move now. So next up is a little bit of work on the front suspension, and the first thing is disconnecting the links to the front anti-roll bar. So let's get on with that. It's actually just this lower connection it says to undo. So I'm just getting a bit of WD-40 on that, and the other side too. It's a 16 knot on there. Okay. I just need a Torx socket to hold the shaft. So that's the knot removed. Spoke too soon. That's it. And then this just pops free. Just the same thing to do at the other side. Okay, so next up it's starting to get a bit more serious, because this is the lower engine mount, and we're going to take this bolt out, and that holds the engine to the subframe. Now there's plenty of stuff still holding this engine up. Let's have a look. So up on the top left hand side, that's an engine mount there. And on the right hand side, there's this transmission mount. This one's not near as big, but between them, they should still be able to suspend this engine and transmission. Okay, so that's a Torx bolt just there. And it's this one, E14. Yeah, I'm getting good at picking those out. So I'm just going to get this on the strong bar and give that a little tweak. And swap to the ratchet now. You can tell there's no real weight on that, otherwise I wouldn't be able to spin it out by hand. And next up we have another engine mount over at the other side. There, you guys can see better than me now. So my understanding is you can get strong bars with heavy duty ratchets in. I saw somebody using one the other day and I thought, oh, that's going to make your life easier. And so I'm going to have to get one. And then you guessed it, there's another one over at the other side. So just going to get the bolts out of that too. And I'm hoping at the end of all this, the subframe can come down and allow me to get to that prop shaft bolt, because I haven't forgotten about it. I think that should have fallen down. Oh. Thought it would. What's holding it up? Oh, okay, so this is just the hole there, but behind it is one of the suspension arm bushes, and so the suspension arm's still attached, so therefore this will all stay where it is for now. Next we need to get back under the car, because there's actually a rubber mount in the middle that we need to detach. What are you doing all the way over there? You won't see anything from there. Come on. Can't have me doing all the hard work. Oh, there we go. So there's the mount, and actually there's one on the other side too. There we go. So what I normally do with these, and I think you saw it earlier in the video or last video, depending on how I edit this, is just a little bit of silicone spray. And then I've just got these grips. I don't know if I probably could have done with my bigger ones. You guys hang on there a sec, I'll get the bigger grips. Voila, the grips have been upgraded. So let's get at the back and push that pin. It is going. Ah, there we go. Right, that's one of them. The other one at the other side. See if I can get this. Okay. Ah, that was a lot easier, wasn't it? Okay, so next up I'm going to do a little bit of work on this front strut and suspension area, because I want to drop the subframe down, and the subframe, as you can see, is back here. Can you see? Yes. The steering rack's on it and this suspension arm's on it, so there's quite a lot fastened to that subframe. But if I have any hope at all of getting that engine down and forward and out of the car, then I can't have this subframe in the way, so it really has to go. Now I'm going to do work on the caliper first, because however we look at it, the caliper's staying on the car, because I don't want to disconnect it and drain the brake fluid. So I'll disconnect that, I'll hang it up, I'll disconnect the front strut, which means a bit of work up in the engine bay. Easier to show than keep talking about. So let's make a start on the caliper and I'll explain as we go. Okay, so there's just 2 Torx bolts holding this brake caliper on, so I'll just do the top one first. Oh no, I won't. See, the temptation was to put that on and turn that then, and I'd have probably snapped that, so don't want to do that. There we go, that looks like a nice position.
let's just loosen the bottom one off. I'm just going to have some rope handy because I'm going to tie this caliper up out of the way. Not that this should just fall off, but you never know. Just supporting it just in case, because if it falls then this will break. And it was quite loose, I think. I think it will just pop off. To be honest, I think that's high enough, so I'm just going to tie that off. And next up, I'm just going to take this disc off because, to be honest, the whole hub's going to come off in a minute. Well, not in a minute, but soon. This is quite a heavy item, so when I start lifting stuff off, anything that's easily removable, and these are easy to remove, to be honest, because they just have a screw holding them in now that the caliper's off. Just give it a little tap to free off that screw a bit. And now usually a little tap with a mallet from the back gets the job done. Jesus, that is heavy. And I'm just going to pop this dust shield out of the way because it's only 2 bolts and it'll give me much better access to the suspension behind. Correction, it's 3 bolts, but it's still very easy. So this here is the steering arm, and I know it's going to be coming loose later, so just a bit of WD-40 on that. And then behind there's a nut on this lower suspension arm where it goes onto the hub. So before undoing this, I'm just going to do a little trick I like to do, which is put a bit of upward pressure on this, and there's a taper in here, you see. And what happens is sometimes the taper breaks free and then the nut's hard to undo. So what I like to do is just support that taper a little bit, and it's almost kind of like keeping it held firm into the casing. There we go, you can see it taking a bit of weight. And then it's no guarantee, but you know, it gives me a better chance of getting this nut off without the whole shaft spinning. And that's a 21mm, so now I'm just going to get the breaker bar on that. Don't really want the steering to be turning. The steering shaft hasn't dropped down yet, but even so. I've got the hub tied at the other side, just to the upright. And that's just enabling me to loosen this off. Let's move to the next step. And that's just to hold the top shaft with the Torx bit. Hold on a second, let's get this right. So I need to get this on first. This is where it gets kind of a pain because the ring spanner makes it a bit slow. Oh geez, that's tight. Okay, I need to drive that in. Just need to drive this Torx bit in. Make sure it's a really nice fit. And then I'm actually going to tighten this back up a little bit. Because I think that thread was a bit dirty, which would have been helping things, you know. And I should have done this in the first place. But if there's any thread exposed out the top, then it gets the worst of the weather. And then it can make really hard to unscrew the nut all the way. Okay, it's definitely looking happier now. Looking much cleaner. Get a bit more spray on. Well, there we go. Glad it wasn't too much more trouble than that. Right, I'm going to leave that there for now, and I'll show you why. Because I want to get this bottom one off. And with this arm here, I might have the opportunity to lever this one off. So let's go around the other side and have a look. So that one's 16mm there. And then at the other side I just have another socket with a Torx bit on it. There we go. Pull that locking pin out. Okay, so I'm just jacking up on that bottle jack because I want this arm to have somewhere to go. If it's at the bottom of its travel and you try to lever it off, then it doesn't want to go, you see. And now I've got what can only be described as a gigantic solid bar. This is actually a new tool in my garage. So first time using this. The idea is that the steering arm is still on, and so I can just use that for leverage. There we go. Worked like a charm. Go ahead and let this bottle jack down now. It's kind of falling over anyway, but it's done its job. I've just got my rubber mallet, so I'm going to drive that out. There we go. Okay, what else we got? So the hub's going to be coming off, so is the strut. This is loose, so that's okay. But what we've got is some additional wires here. There's a connection up here, so I'm going to disconnect that there, and that can all come off with the car. Yeah, so I'm just going to pop this out of this holder. And it's actually hard to see, but there's a little holder behind, little donut thing. And then on the passenger side there's an additional sensor, I believe it's the brake pad wear sensor that I also need to disconnect. And then there's just this brake line holder, because we know that the caliper's staying here. This brake line, we can't have it going down with the hub. I haven't come across this type of connection before. It's like a rubber thing. Okay, well that's started anyway. Kind of a strange design, aren't they? But you always used to have a metal clip. And I don't know why we suddenly need this. Okay. Metal clip would have been easier. Maybe it's 0.1 of a second faster to do these on the production line. Okay, so next I'm going to remove the CV boot clip.
Because when I'm ready to lower the subframe, then this drive shaft will need to come out of the transmission because it's going to be coming down with it.
And this is a new type of CV boot clip that I don't have the pliers for. But what I just discovered on the passenger side is you can just drive this clip off, and then once it's off, it's a little bit baggy, then you can make it pop off. I haven't decided if I'm going to try to reuse that clip or not. Depends on how damaged it gets now and how expensive the tool is for refitting it. Well, it came off easy on the other side. Just going to give it a bit of encouragement. There we go, it's off. Well, it just about is. There we go. Oh, bet you were starting to doubt me. So it just comes off, and so this top bit goes over that, and then you can click it, and obviously you'll need a tool probably to squeeze those two. Okay, so I'm about ready to get this hub out. There's some bolts to undo up there, but I don't want it to just fall. So I just have some blocks. Leave a little bit of room for it to come down some, so I know it's coming down, but that should be good enough. Let's have a look up top. So let's have a look and see what we've got.
First up, I just need to undo the 3 bolts that hold the strut brace onto the strut top, so that's these 2 Torx ones and then a hex as well. And now we can move on to the bolts for the strut top.
So these are all 13 mil. I'm just going to break all those free. You can see these are like a locating pin here. What I expect to see is that pin starting to disappear down, because it's probably going to come down with the hub. Okay, I'm going to take out 3 of these. That's 2. So that just leaves 1 there and 1 at the back. Ah, yeah, look, you can see that's starting to go now. So just 1 bolt holding it now. So I'm going to keep a hold of this. I don't think it's going anywhere, but it might drop just a little bit when this bolt comes out. There we go, just like that. There you go, that's 1 strut and hub assembly off.
And I'm just going to keep the CV joint nice and clean by putting a glove over it.
And then just inside there where the CV joint came out, I'm just going to cover that too. You're probably starting to visualize now that when I undo that bolt, then the subframe will come down and the steering rack with it. Okay, we need to disconnect the electric steering. And you'd think it would be around the driver's side, but it's not. It's underneath the passenger wheel arch, so let's have a look at it. So there's a couple of connectors here which go to the electric steering. There's like an earth here, and there's a few little clips further back. I think they come down with the rack when I lower it. So I'm going to use these gland pliers to squeeze the little tabs on that. There we go. Not this time, action camera. My reflexes were too fast. Let's get you guys back on track. I thought that you pushed it up, but it didn't want to go. So it does push up that tab, so I'm not sure what it was playing at. There we go. It's worth taking your time, because if you break that, then it's a bit of a mare. You know, you either have to tie wrap it back together, or it'd be quite a big job changing that electrical connection. Now, even though I've disconnected that, there's a little screw I have to undo, because otherwise... Oh, that's like, will it? Oh yeah, that'll come down with the subframe. Okay, I don't have to undo that screw. So everything else looks ready to go, I think. Oh, except the earth. You guys were going to remind me of that, weren't you? Got my ratcheting spanner. Electric's disconnected. Next step, let's look at the big bolts underneath the subframe. Okay, so we're under the car looking to the front, and as you can see I've supported the front subframe with a jack. There's not that many bolts remaining now, so just on this side we've got one there, and then obviously similar at the other side too. Oh, where is it? There it is. So what I'm going to do now is, I know how long it is, I'm going to put it back in a few turns, and then if the subframe does start to drop when I undo this other bolt, then at least it's going to be even with its support. Okay, so the subframe's not dropping, but I do have it well supported on the jack right now. So I'm going to do the same with this bolt, where I make it so the bolt will still support the subframe. And now I'm going to lower the jack just a little bit, see what happens. I'm hoping that this starts to descend, but it may not if I've missed something. No, it hasn't. Maybe it needs a bit of encouragement. But there must be something else holding it up. Yeah, there's definitely something else holding it up. Now let's go investigate. And so inside each of the wheel arches, there's a bolt for the subframe as well. Not quite as large, these ones. And I'm going to take these completely out because I can't be having them all a little bit loose. I'll be running around all over. So I'll just go do the driver's side one too. Let's get back under there because I think we're getting close to a milestone of getting this subframe down. I would feel like we're finally making progress, to be honest. Okay, so this time let's do a little bit of lowering and see if the subframe starts to come down. Oh, it has. Right, so I have to be brave and take these out now. Now I'm just going to get well away from this. I expect it to be a controlled lower, but nothing wrong with making yourself scarce. A little bit of more lowering. Okay, it feels nice and balanced. Oh, stuck too soon. That's it. Subframe's down. I just need to wrestle it off of the jack, and I think even though it's quite a heavy lump, I'll be able to manage it. So we'll see. I'll get a feel for the weight when I start moving it around. Oh no, it's really heavy. Yeah, I don't think I'm going to be lifting that.
I decided to raise up the subframe again and then lower it down onto these blocks, and that allowed me to get the jack out.
Okay, so I'm going to do a controlled fall where I pull it this way and the blocks tip over, and then this thing becomes a little bit lower. So let's see how we get on with that. Okay. Lift this end down onto the ground, I think. Oh, I've lost count of how many times that spiky bit of aluminium's got my back. Oh, it's killing me. Just don't see it there. Whew. Okay, subframe's down on the floor. Okay, so I'm pleased to announce, if you remember the prop shaft and I just couldn't get to that nut to hold it still to unscrew it out of the transfer box, well, dropping the subframe has given me the access that I need, which I expected it to, but it's nice to have the confirmation. So let's have a quick look. So there you go. So that was that hex nut that I was trying to hold ages ago and just having no joy at all. And this is the 50mm spanner that I hold further back on the prop shaft with, and I could never make up my mind whether that fit or not, and it does, you know. It was just that I couldn't get on properly before. We're back in business. But I think that's a job for tomorrow. It's been some heavy work today. One thing I will show you though is this engine. You can see, you know, it's just wobbling now, and that's because there's only engine mounts at the top that are holding it in. So you can see we're getting really close. We've got the prop shaft to do, and then literally a few things to check on the top, I'm sure. But engine mounts, and we may be dropping this down tomorrow. It'll feel like the same day to you probably, depending on how I edit this up. Okay, here we go. It's the next day. I'm ready to tackle that
prop shaft. Yeah, I'm ready to tackle the prop shaft. It's going to be like the third or fourth time that I've tried at different stages of this unbuild. That's what I'm calling the strip down. Yes, I know I've still got the same t-shirt on, but it can do another session. Let's get straight in there and see if we get it done this time. Okay, you guys have seen this a few times already, so I'm not going to go in too much detail, but this is the spanner that I couldn't get to the nut before, but now I've got great access to. And this one just needs to be held still, really. The nut is on the transmission side, and I'm going to be unscrewing it from further underneath the car. But anyway, to hold this still, because there's only one me, I need something to hold this. So I've got this big bar, and I'm going to just pop that onto the spanner, just like so. Yeah, and then if we just pan a little to the right, you can see that it's being braced against the 4-post lift. So that's step one. And then I need to get this other spanner under the middle of the car, in here, and then this has to come down. Now I expect this to be super tight, so even though it's quite a long spanner, I don't think I'm just going to be able to pull this and it come loose. Because the instructions say it's Loctited at the other end. But give it a little go. No, definitely not. So plan B is just to shock it a little bit. Now you might be shocked because I've got a lump hammer here, but sometimes when you're breaking free stuff that's tight, you have to give it a little knock just to wake it up. So I'm not going to go too crazy, but let's just give it a tap. It's clear that I need my own bar on this. Only has to be a short one, just to give me a little bit of extra oomph. Got a longer bar, or a longish bar. Give it another go. Don't know if it'll work. Yeah, it didn't even seem close to going then, to be honest. I need to think of another plan. Okay, so the other plan is even more levers. So I've got that one, and then I've got this, which is another bit of bar. So I'm going to insert that back where it was, and then this bit of bar goes in the end of that. And now we'll see what happens. I need to go down the other side to really get some oomph on that. You guys watch this side for me. Let me know if it moves. Okay, so I've just managed to break it free. I didn't film all of it because I've been at it for about an hour, trying all sorts of different things for different leverage. I'll show you what worked in the end. Yeah, so I just cobbled together, that's a breaker bar at the bottom, and then that's thick walled tubing, and then the spanner at the top. But I've got that turned like 1/8 of a turn so far, but it really does feel like it's broken free now. It's going to be a bit awkward still, but I'm sure that'll come loose. So let's have a go at it together. I'm hoping I'll just be able to reverse it and get it in there, so you can just see what's going on. You can see I've got it. Reverse the spanner again. Oh yeah, that's really free. No, it's not. The spanner's come off the other end. Let's get it back. Free-ish. Now that this is a bit looser up here, that spanner's trying to fall off all the time, so that's why you see me doing my Spider-Man impression, trying to hold that spanner on while adjusting the position of the other one over here. And you're probably thinking, what the heck is he trying to do? Well, don't worry, because you're not on your own. But here's a close-up of the thread and the nut at the gearbox end. Now, the instructions say specifically not to try to undo that nut. You're literally just holding this one. That's why I'm unscrewing at the middle of the prop shaft. But can you see a bit of thread starting to appear? So what happens is the prop shaft is threaded, and literally you're unthreading it, screwing it out of that nut. And I don't know how long that thread is, so I've been at it 30 minutes already. You can see it's quite laborious doing the spanner and moving it to a new position and trying again. I'll let you watch here just for a couple of rounds and you can see exactly what's going on. So just changing the position of the spanner on the prop shaft, just holding that one on. Okay, and I'm going to give it a turn now and you'll see that thread unscrew just a tiny bit. There we go. Move it to a new position. Sometimes it slips when I move it. There we go, got it again. Okay. Yeah, come on. Let's get a rhythm going and we'll get this job done sometime this week. I'm
what I expect to happen here is that shaft will eventually come out, but it shouldn't drop because it's all supported by jacks all the way back. Can do it by hand now finally. Still need something to hold that nut though. May not look like it to you, but that nut's definitely free now, and that means the prop shaft is undone from the transfer box. Even though this isn't swinging very easily this way, I'm confident that when we come to lift out the engine and transmission as a single unit, we can leave that prop shaft behind. Wow, so that prop shaft was really difficult underneath. It's been the toughest part of the job, you know, so far, and it should have been so simple. I don't know why BMW designed it like that. Anyway, we're back on now with the top part of the engine. I'm all over the place with the technical manual because I dropped the subframe down and I dropped the front struts out both sides, which was probably completely out of sequence. So I'm just going to spool through it and see what it says to do next. I know there's some stuff to do up on top of the engine, so let's have a quick look at that. Okay, so over on the transmission here, unsurprisingly, there are a few things to undo. So this is like the gearbox selector lever type thing here. This is where I put it in manual ages ago, and it has a little electrical connection here, and that needs to stay on the car when we drop this transmission. So I've got that to undo, and then a couple of clips around the back, which I'll get the GoPro on to show you. Just have a couple of clips to pry off of here with my trim tool. There we go. And I've just made sure these are marked up really well so that I know where those go back on again. Okay, easy peasy that one, huh? Yeah, and so now I can go ahead and lift this cable out of the way. Just put it around here, I suppose. And then at the back of the transmission, at the very back, there's an earthing strap. Just a 13mm spanner on that. Okay, that's pretty loose. So I should be able to wind that out by hand. I'm always surprised that there's no grease covering these fittings once they're screwed tight, stopping water ingress, but there you go. Just going to leave this nut in place, or this bolt in place rather. Just leave that dangling down, I think. I don't think it's going to be in the way there. This looks like it's a coolant pipe that goes to the heater matrix for the heating inside the car. Apologies that you can't really see, but to be honest, I can't really see. There's another little hose clip, you know, those ones that have a spring clamp on it. That's right. And then that's just come off. Okay, so we've been working down in this area, and now it's time to turn our attention to the left-hand side of the engine, because over here, these are the fuel lines. So of course the fuel lines that are coming to and from the tank have to stay in place, but these here, they feed the fuel rail, which runs along the front of the engine. So there's some little clips here. I need to put something underneath to catch any fuel that comes out. I don't think there'll be much. This car hasn't been run for ages. Okay, so this grey band here is some kind of clip. I might be able to do it just by hand. Oh, there we go, yep. So it's just a clip. And then actually it looks like a push fitting. Tell you what I'll do is temporarily, I'll just pop this clip loose. And then I'll be able to get this out where I can get my hands on it a bit. Now I think what you do is you force this black part into the silver bit. And the way I usually do this whenever it's a push fitting is I get a ring spanner that'll fit at the back. So let's have a look for one. I'm guessing an 11mm will do the job. Looks like it will. Ah yes, it pushed in. There we go. Just a little bit of fuel. And to be honest, we needed a little bit of fuel smell in the garage. It's not a proper garage without a bit of fuel. So there we go, that's the top one. The bottom one's a different type of clip. It'd be too easy if it was the same type, wouldn't it? It's hard for me to show you this, but it's like a squeeze from both sides job. Oh yeah, that was super easy. All right, okay, BMW, I'll give you a thumbs up for that bit of design. That was nice. So I'll just pop this clip back in place just to hold those there where they were. Stinks of fuel. I think maybe I'll angle these down a little bit and get some of that fuel out. I've got a bucket underneath, I'm not just throwing it on the floor. If I just leave them, you can bet your bottom dollar that they'll catch on something as I'm lifting the engine out. So what I'm going to do is just look for somewhere to tie wrap them. Oh yeah, this looks good here. Now probably this tie wrap will be in the way and I'll end up cutting it off, but we'll see. That's tidy enough for now. I'm just going to put a bit of tape over the end of these fuel lines just to make sure that nothing gets in there, because there's no filters between here and the fuel injectors, so if something gets in then it might cause us problems. So that's that one. I'll do the same to that one. Okay, in theory that's everything.
I know for a fact as soon as I start taking the weight on a hoist or something and pulling it towards me, I'll think, oh, why isn't it coming out? And I'll find something else. But in theory, that's everything. So let's get the engine hoist round. We'll take it from there. Okay, so here it is. Now I might end up dropping the car more for when I'm lifting it out, because there's no point having the engine that high and I've finished working underneath. But I can still get this rigged up, so let's do it. I need to get these legs on. Start giving that a little crank up. Okay, I think that'll do for now. So I mentioned I don't need the car as high anymore. Let's get the door open and I can get this lowered down. So I often use rope for lifting, especially when it's a complex shape like this. It's not super strong rope, but if you put lots of it on, then it gets the job done. It also allows me to get, around manifolds, front and back and things like that. So yeah, that's why I use it. And I do have lifting straps. If I feel like I need some extra support, then I'll find a way of utilizing these too. What I'm going to do is pump up the engine hoist just a little bit, just to put a little bit of lift onto all this strapping that I've put in. And then there's the engine mounts, both sides. So on this left hand side, this is the bigger mount, and you can probably just see 3 torque screws in there. I'm just going to back them off, all of them a little bit, and then I can see if the engine just starts to drop or not. Then I'll be able to decide whether to pump up the engine hoist a little bit more. So I'm just going to point with a screwdriver, but you can see a little bit of a gap forming there. So that means that the engine is dropping down, but there's a gap under each one of the 3 screws. So that suggests that the ropes and the lifting straps have got the weight. Let's have a look at the mount on the other side. Okay, going to the other side. Now this is more of a transmission mount than an engine mount, because obviously this is all the transmission here. It's a smaller mount, as you can see. Let's see what happens when I start backing these off. BMW did the slightly bigger screw trick on me then. There's no reason for these screws to be a different size, but they are. So I had to change the socket. I'm not very happy with the balance of how I've got it slung. The transmission was wanting to drop and drop, but the engine side was really well supported with the straps, and so that means it might all try to turn quite a lot, as those bolts come out on the transmission side. I'll show you quickly. So as you can see, I've used the bolts to pull it back up tight, and what I'm going to do is put some more rope, especially at this end, supporting this end of the transmission a bit more strongly, So I'll see what I can come up with. Okay, so we're about ready to lift it out. I put a little bit more rope on the transmission side to balance it up a bit, and it's looking better. So that's all of the bolts out of the transmission side, and the hoist seems to have the weight. So I just have to undo the rest of the bolts on the motor mount side, and hopefully I'll be able to lift it out. So we're getting close. Okay, so in theory, only the hoist has the weight of the engine now, because the engine and transmission mount, all of the bolts are out. Now the prop shaft is loosened, but the end of the shaft, they're still engaged ever so slightly. So really I want the engine and transmission to come straight forward without dropping or rising any. I'm hoping it's just going to scoot this way just a couple of inches at first. Okay, this engine's just hanging on the hoist now, so I'm going to bring it this way a little bit. Quite a heavy lump, so you really do have to pull on the hoist. So I said earlier that I thought there'd be at least one thing that stops the engine coming out, and I never thought that it'd be the cable for the bonnet latch. As you can see, it goes into this little junction box here, and I won't be able to scoot the engine out without undoing it. So let's have a quick look in there. So normally these things are quite simple. There's a cover that you pop off, and then you can get to the cables inside. Okay, there we go. So with the lid open, I could disconnect the main cable and then move on to the latch side.
And then I just need to unlatch it here. It's like a little ball on the end of the cable. So I just need to pop that out. There we go, we got that loose. So that's the last obstacle, hopefully. Are there any more surprises, or was that bonnet latch cable it? I keep saying it's going to come out of here, and it will one of these times. Just going to lower it down a little bit so that it clears these brackets. goes underneath them, hopefully. Okay, so that's it. Be honest with me, you never had any doubts, did you? But of course, there's still a lot of work to do. There's still quite a lot of stuff on this engine. The transmission has to come off of the backside so that then it can go onto an engine stand. The engine strip down and rebuild is going to be part of the next video. So I hope that you've enjoyed this one, and if you have, then please give me a thumbs up. And please subscribe to make sure you see the next video, which will be coming up soon. Okay, thanks for watching. Bye for now. Click the bell. Should have said click the bell.